Hello. Passionate about sustainability, energy, and climate? You're in the right place. Welcome to Energetic. I'm Maureen Cornelis, and together we will engage with people who dedicate their lives to climate justice and making a just energy transition happen. They may be activists, scientists, policymakers, or other enthusiasts, just like you. Let their life stories and insights inspire you to build a better future for people and the planet. Today, my guest is Kęstutis Kupšys, a member of the European Economic and Social Committee, the Vice President of the Lithuanian Consumer Alliance, and the Director of the Association for Honesty in Banking. In his own words, Kęstutis is a sustainable finance, clean mobility, and renewable energy enthusiast devoted to unified Europe. Kęstutis, welcome.
Hi, Maureen.
You said in a LinkedIn post recently that you learned to love climate change when you started seeing it as an opportunity. Can you tell us more about your background, your vision, and how you became a member of the European Economic and Social Committee, putting climate change as an opportunity for growth for Europe?
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that, Maureen. It's a great introduction. And yes, definitely the climate change phenomenon is something which is normally perceived as a truly negative and life-threatening thing. But it's not so uncommon to search for some silver lining in every negative phenomenon. And in my case, I was trying to think about that, how it will possibly change our society and our world. Imagine now if there is no climate change threat and let's say we continue with this search for new resources and exploiting Earth and building a society which produces more and more and more. And in the end, we potentially end with something like of a capitalism jungle. And that would be really some type of world you would not very much like to live in. And in my feeling, talking about things in, let's say, 50 years perspective, it looks like if humanity is now faced with this type of challenge, it is now evident that we will have to change the underlying economic system somehow in order to survive. So it leads me to this vision and probably more of a hope that we may end up, after all the necessary reforms, all the necessary changes are made, we may end up with a completely or at least a significantly different economic system from the current liberal capitalism. And it gives me hope for more changes, not just getting rid of the extra greenhouse gas emissions, whatever, but we will have to change finance, we will have to change we produce and distribute products. And going to your question, how it happened that a person like me is now helping to provide opinions to European co-legislators, and that's what exactly the European Economic and Social Committee does. It all started from essentially me joining so it was back in 2011 when I joined the NGO, which, as you properly titled, is a small association for honesty in banking. So it developed from that time that I was more and more immersed into not-for-profit activities. And as you know, or probably it has to be explained because not all your listeners know about the committee, the Economic and Social Committee is a specific body, which is advisory body, providing consultations, providing advice to the Commission, to the Parliament, to the Council, when it comes to new legislative initiatives. All those EU bodies have to ask for advice, sending us letters to ask to provide the advice for them, as they are obliged by the Lisbon Agreement, the Lisbon Treaty. So it's a body which provides this type of advice, and it combines messages from three big groups. One is employers, another is workers, and the third group is so-called Diversity Europe group, which unites many different species, so to say, of NGOs and of specific professional associations. Of sometimes it could be farmers, it could be families, it could be church organizations. So truly a very different kind. And that third group is my home now for the next 5 years. I'm kind of representative elected from Lithuanian side to be inside of the delegation, which is now part of this 300 plus people committee. And we converse in a process of drafting the opinion, and we search for compromise, we search for best ways to combine our different expertise and provide this civil society view to the Commission and the Parliament and the Council. So it goes in 10 years, you can make this type of career from a specific area in your country where you are involved into something which is truly a problem you're trying to solve as an NGO. And then you may essentially kind of end up doing some European policy work in Brussels.
That's amazing, because you are truly bridging the gaps between the needs of the population and also from Lithuania and EU policy making that actually affects, the 470 million Europeans, but also the rest of the world, given the place of the European Union as a global economic leader. So that's really interesting to see how the European Union tries to be closer to their people and closer to the actual needs, etc. So that is really interesting. And in particular, this podcast is about sustainability also because I'm a European Climate Pact ambassador. And the idea of this Climate Pact is to bridge the gaps and make sure that everybody knows about sustainability and what we can achieve as individuals to heal the planet and make sure that people can still live on it, because we don't have any other home, actually. So actually, I was really interested in your experience in the economic issues, finance, and consumer perspectives. So that's exactly the topic that you're touching upon at the European Economic and Social Committee, but also the topic that you've been working on for the past 10 years. So
yes.
Do you make sure that when you take decisions or when you build policy with the European Economic and Social Committee, how do you make sure that the core concepts of sustainability, like doing good for the people and the planet, are preserved along the way? For instance, in the taxonomy discussion, for the listeners who might not know it, but the taxonomy is like a European classification system establishing a list of environmentally sustainable economic activities. And it should trigger sustainable investment and help implement the European Green Deal. So it will help Europe to become truly carbon neutral by 2050. So how do you make sure that those concepts stays along the way? How do you preserve, I would say, the freshness and the pureness of the core message as a policymaker?
Yeah, it's an ambition a bit too high. Maybe it's not so much on us, but actually we are trying to influence the policy debate in the EU in many different ways. So the Economic and Social Committee is one of those for us where you can get your voice heard, even if you are from small country, from small organization, or if you represent some specific group of people with specific issues. Yeah, so it's an open space to debate, but the key still lies in my understanding how I feel after 10 years of some work in this Brussels bubble. I still feel it's a battle of really very uneven forces. So as an NGO, trying to do something which is mostly kind of specifically targeted to help our planet heal or to stop the destruction of the planet. Yeah. So it's some universal argument you may have with you, and you may you only have your voice as a tool. So what you do, you try to pronounce your support for something or your concerns about something as much as you can, as loud as you can. And on the other side of the table of your, let's say, we are talking actually about many tables and about many multifaceted, let's say, lobby battles, lobby forums. So on the other side, you have industry, which outperforms you in all the aspects, in all factors. So, for example, number of lobbyists working in Brussels on behalf of financial industry is calculated at something 1,600. So on the other side, you may have something like 4 people from NGOs working on financial issues in Brussels, in Brussels bubble, lobbying or advocating for humanitizing of finance. So this huge gap of human power, of money power, creates, of course, really big challenges. And now the committee comes in with a much more, let's say, balanced structure. As I've said, it's a committee of 3 equal groups. One is employers, another is workers, and the third is Diversity Europe. So now you have 3 groups, not just, this 400 against 1 ratio. You have 3 equal groups, and you have a lot of tools to provide your views, but they have then to be combined. Now I'm on the specific sustainable finance taxonomy working group, which has to draft an opinion on the topic. The dossier is coming to our committee possibly end of April. We are recording this mid-April, but in a few weeks we will start working on that. And I know that it will be really a challenge to try to reconcile different views, to give some weight to our demands from the civil society point of view. And then, of course, there is industry, which probably wishes to have completely different views reflected in that opinion. But we are now on equal grounds. So it gives me some hope that this committee could play really a very important role, because we now have same power as industry in drafting something in comparison to 400 against 1 ratio when it comes to normal, so-called normal, typical Brussels lobbying activities. And we know this big or huge, I would say, difference in lobby powers exists in many industries. It's not only finance; it's also fossil fuels. It's also about, let's say, food. It's about chemicals. It's about so many other industries where civil society advocates are so outnumbered by industry representatives. And going specifically to discuss sustainable finance issue, for me, it's a kind of a key to so many green transitions in Europe. Because if we decide which activities can be deemed green, then probably we can make people investing into those activities. If we put the bar too high in terms of CO2 emitted, then it means you have so many activities described as green that people get lost. And it's truly a challenge and a problem how to properly put the bar and make sure that not so green activities are not painted green, and we are not engaged in another wave of greenwashing. A lot of greenwashing is going on, and sustainable finance taxonomy should not become a tool to provide legal ground for this greenwashing. I don't want, as a person with my savings in a bank, I don't want to invest in something which is, let's say, painted green, and my financial advisor at my bank would say, look, this is green fund. They only invest according to taxonomy requirements. They only invest in green activities. Go forward and invest into this enterprise. You are fine with that. You are doing a good job for the planet, and you are supporting green transition with your money. But wait a bit. If that green includes burning natural gas and producing heat or electricity, emitting 270 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour produced. Sorry, it's not what I intended to do. I want my money to be invested truly green, not into gas burning facilities. So it's now one of many ongoing lobby battles, how to put that bar, how high or how low, in order to really make sure that the regulation, the legislation is supporting green transition, not going against it.
So if I understand well, what you do with the European Economic and Social Committee is really to try to level the playing field and make sure that David and Goliath do have the same tools to start that battle, or at least you try to empower David even more in order to win against Goliath. And that's truly what's needed when you describe the situation with those powerful lobby groups or the powerful industry indeed. And I guess that with the taxonomy, there is also this aspect of, for instance, right now with the green bonds and also with the overall discussion about cryptocurrencies and how they are actually polluting or consuming a lot of energy, and how do you include them actually in the framework, because it's something quite new, and if I'm not wrong, it's not completely transparent or even completely regulated at the EU level. So there is a lot of things going on with those cryptocurrencies, and people want to invest in it because it brings, I mean, it's a good investment. There is a good return on investment, but the environmental impact of those cryptocurrencies can be extremely blurred. So how do you include those kind of parameters in the discussion?
Yes, it's a great example. When you have, let's say, Bitcoin, other cryptocurrencies, they are volatile assets. And essentially, there are times they may bring you good profits. So if you measure your portfolio or your wealth only in terms of getting as high financial return as you can, then of course you may be tempted to be engaged into the risky or less risky, but still money producing activities. And you are only fixed on getting more money out of your money. And that type of thinking was prevalent maybe 20, 30 years ago. When I was a teenager, it was still Soviet times. I was born in the former Soviet Union, which was Lithuanian Socialist Republic in early 1970s. So that was the time when you could only dream of probably becoming a banker or a financial broker, stockbroker, dealer in currencies, whatever. So I dreamt about it, and then the capitalism suddenly came to our reality. It became a reality. You could not only read books about Western banking attractions, but you can suddenly become one. And, at the start of my career, I was a financial broker. I used to deal in futures, options, foreign exchange, and other financial instruments. So, but that was, in a way, a representation of this type of thinking, that only money matters. So you get some capital to manage, and you make more capital out of it. And you only measure your financial result at the end of the day by how many dollars or euros or any other currency you earned, and what is your percentage growth rate on that portfolio. And you don't care much what's behind that. Are you investing in polluting or not polluting activities by moving your money from one asset to another? And the cryptocurrencies mining is probably it is now the very ideal representation of that thinking. You don't mine any earth materials, any resources from the earth or the ocean anymore. You just mine money. It's Bitcoin mining. It's just, it bears this strange name that you only have to get to know how to manage your algorithms and mine currency, mine new money. It's something unbelievable how the world changed in the last few decades. So that's a really quite extreme representation how money became so important for our society that we forget everything else. And now all the debate about the climate change, about the pollution, about the environmental destruction and need to care for the restoration of Earth, now it brings us back to basics, that at the start of everything, at the start of every supply chain, we have essentially only two really mattering elements. One is sun, providing you with energy, with heat and light and everything. Another is earth. And you have to take good care of earth, because otherwise your supply chains are just not existing. You don't have anything to mine anymore if your resource base is depleted. So I think the big change at least in the minds of part of society is related that we have to get rid of this money-centric approach. And that's why it makes me so fixated on sustainable finance. I think it is a key to many things, things happening, because in today's society, someone who takes care how money is invested is really a ruler of the world. He or she has this enormous power, how to deal with, let's say, 7 trillion of pensions money, or with 500 billion of some investment fund. Yeah? So it's a matter of responsibility and power. Who has the power to decide, who has the right to decide how money is invested? And this power now rests in banks, in the offices of money managers, in the offices of pension fund managers. So coming from a NGO, but with this financial background back from my early career years, I see there's a huge potential. If we can make the finance really serve society and serve planet, not to be so much devoted to this capital makes capital, money earns money activities like you described. It's really pure craziness to have money mining firms, and because it makes all our life somehow disconnected from that basis we live on. And this basis now needs attention, not our quarterly income statements or dividend reports. In the end, it's not important. In the end is how do we save resources and we produce everything we need for our prosperous lives.
Yeah, that's really interesting. However, I would make the advocate devil now, because some companies keep on saying like the revenues and the dividends as one of the only ways to assess the viability, the health of the company, and also of their management. I mean, there was the case recently in a French company where the CEO apparently made some like more sustainable investment for the people working in the company, for also this make the supply chain a little bit more sustainable. And apparently that was one of the reasons why he was fired from his job. So I would say that it's supposed an enormous shift in the mindset also of the investors to see that investing is not only about dividends and the immediate return on investment, but really about the long-term impact that you can have on the people, on the planet, on the overall making sure that there is no harm made on the lands or on the workers as well. And how do you see that happen? I mean, do you, with the ESC, have a role to play in try to shape the future boards of investors and the future discussion of money? Are you the right person to talk with?
Well,
when we want to change the world and make the finance serve the people and not only serve money.
Yeah, I think the key is still in the offices of bankers and in the offices of high commissioners, because sometimes we talk about let's educate consumers. Let's make them change their consumption habits. Let's make them switch to more sustainable choices in their everyday lives, and everything will be fine. No, we will not, because it is not enough. Same goes with the sustainable finance issue. How much sustainability you want in finance? Would you like to have 20% of sustainable finance in finance? Would you like to have 50%? Because what the other part of finance does, the non-sustainable one, is impacting the earth the exactly opposite way you want to impact with your sustainable finance money. Yeah, like, okay, I can change my habits. I can make my investment fund to invest only into low impact or doing no significant harm, or even providing some benefits for the earth activities. I can do that. But if I do that with, let's say, my colleagues, and together we make up 1/5 of the financial system, then what the other 4/5 of that system does, what the other part of the system does, is actually going into the opposite directive. So in the end, I earn nothing because the earth is still being destroyed. Yeah. So what we have to feel and probably understand, that's kind of a medium and long-term vision, that we do not have luxury to have something on sustainable side while the rest is business as usual. We have to transform the whole system. Everything has to be changed because we want to escape with minimal losses, with probably less than 2 degrees warming, and not so much depleted earth resources. Yeah, if we want to save the earth, we have to change the whole system, not just some parts of it. And that you're advocating, you're devil's advocating, as you put it. It has to be confronted with pure facts. That, for example, just one small example, that since the Paris Agreement, and it only encompasses 3 years, 2016 and 19. So banks have invested $2.7 trillion into fossil fuel industry. So it's about investing 3 trillion, almost 3 trillion, into companies which are doing business as usual, and they are harming the planet. Yeah. At the same time, we still calculate the overall impacts of, let's say, green finance, green investing, about the impact investing, only in the area of hundreds of billions. In the same league, the amounts of money invested dirty way outweighs the amounts invested green way at a factor probably 5-1 or 10-1, because there is no statistics, not so much statistical data available. So in the end, we have to really aim truly high, because there is lobby pressure, there is inertia, there is sometimes a problem with some countries not collaborating enough, and some industries searching for exceptions and so on. You really have to put the bar very high in order to achieve something, to achieve at least something. And the Economic and Social Committee, of course, it's a good forum for me and my colleagues to express our ideas and to be a little bit in kind of vigilant of what's going on the European policy scene. But we cannot do everything on our own. We need really to have policymakers on our side. And the European Parliament is, in most cases, it's the most transparent institution with, let's say, with quite a green ambition, I would say. So we really appreciate when the European Parliament listens and takes into account what the civil society has to say on this. We will see. I'm a realist. I'm the type of optimist with constant reality checks during all the process. And I know that things are difficult to be achieved. It's a long road ahead of us, but you only achieve something if you at least try something. Yeah. Otherwise, we would only be left to the mercy of fossil fuel lobby industry lobbyists. it would really make our planet to hell.
Yeah, but it's also interesting to see that many fossil fuels companies like Total are investing more and more into renewable energies, and they are also positioning or shifting their core business to all forms of energy, then not only fossil fuels. And that's also interesting to see the shift that is progressively happening here. But my last question, I actually wanted to ask you about the consumer perspective, because you come from a consumer association in Lithuania, and you are still very committed to consumer empowerment. And you mentioned several times how people are kind of lost when they have to make some choices regarding their investment and where they should be putting their money. And so how do you keep on managing to, thanks to your experience in Lithuania with consumer organization, etc., also your experience with BEUC and the consumer organization, European Consumer Organization, how do you manage to bring up consumers' priorities, to bring them up on the table, to make sure that everybody is listened to, especially when they come from smaller countries where the economic realities may be very different from the ones you see in Western Europe, for instance? So how do you see also this balance happen in the framework of the Green Deal, of the just transition, etc.?
Well, Marine, I have to admit that smaller countries, of course, are somehow disadvantaged, and that's the way things are. I'm realist. Yeah. So in the end, when you are sitting around the same table together with your colleagues from all the 27 EU countries, you have the same voice as everyone has. And if your voice is strong enough, if you are able to convince others, if you are able to argue with your rational arguments, or sometimes it's about emotion. Yeah, so you really cannot escape being an emotional person. Yeah. So, but with this in mind, with your tools, with your instruments in your possession, you can truly influence policy the same way as big countries do. And pan-European organizations like BEUC, you mentioned, the European Consumer Organization, you are respected and heard the same way as the consumer representatives from bigger countries are. So our story is probably a good example of success. Back in 2012, I was among the signatories of the Lithuanian Consumers Alliance. We decided we have to combine our forces instead of making our efforts on our own individually. All the small organizations have to create an umbrella organization. And we did that. In 2013, we became members of BEUC. And it also really provided a good boost for our young organization, because we got enormous support at the European level from our BEUC friends, BEUC colleagues. So it made us, in a sense, that there are so many examples from BEUC and so much support, which made us believe that small country organizations can be at the forefront of the policy making in Europe, with bringing their specific expertise, their specific experiences, and so on. And especially if you come from the eastern part of the EU, you know that things are really different in your region from what is already kind of a long time forgotten lesson in the West. So you have to go through all those lessons that your Western colleagues learned at school, let's say. So it's a region in transition. And we see now how painful this transition is, for example, for several countries which are still attached to fossil fuels, to burning coal, for example. They want this transition period to be longer. And they truly argue they need extra financial support for that. And I cannot blame them for this type of attitude. It's normal, it's a very practical approach. But in the end, I think let's move on in our imagination 10 or 20 years from now. In the end, we may see that Europe is more prosperous than today and more clean, which is very important. So the consumer perspective is a really important one. Of course, we try to influence our behavior, consumer behavior in our country, in the whole region, to make sure that we learn those lessons as quickly as we can. Yeah, we want to catch up, and we can invest extra effort to make this happen. But it all goes, quite inertical. It requires extra resources, extra, let's say, effort. But coming back to your question about the consumer empowerment and how we work, it's constantly reminding myself that we only have our voice. But with this voice, if you talk important things and if you are committed to what you say and what you do, your voice becomes truly a weapon to achieve your aims. So we are really communicating a lot through mass media, and I may say we are heard more and more. We are heard. Our opinions are taken into account, and if we continue with more effort, with clear vision, clear target in sight, we can achieve something. So being small means that you are probably, frankly, it means you can say more things compared to if you were from a bigger country. You can, let's say, you are potentially less dependent on different outside factors. If you want an example, like imagine working for an NGO which is financed by the government somewhere in, let's say, Slovakia, and this NGO would like to express their negative opinion about Dieselgate, or something related to pollution from automobiles. Yeah? So in the end, you may encounter a problem with your financing because people from the government will say, we are trying to have the bigger factories in our country because we need employment, and these bigger automobile makers, they are providing thousands of jobs to our communities. What are you doing? You cannot fight this trend. We need those working places. Yeah, we need those well-paying factories in our vicinity, even if the ICE vehicles are polluting our nature, our cities, harming our health. So we are less dependent on these type of interdependencies in small countries, and I think through us we can express much wider views, and we are really honest in what we say and what we do. We are not dependent on these type of government-related or business-related fundings.
Yeah, so you really turn this challenge into an opportunity to be more transparent, to be acting as a middle person between different interests coming from the industry or from the government sectors. And I feel that it's something that came along the whole discussion, how finance is a way to enable things, how you as a member of the European Economic and Social Committee managed to be the middleman between opposite or conflicting interests, and how you build a consensus and how you make sure that all those concepts are actually used to building something better for all of us. So I must say that it has been a fascinating conversation. I'm sure we could go on for hours. It's been really great to have you here, and thank you so much for all your insights, because I feel that I've learned a lot today, and I'm sure that the listeners have learned a lot as well on the functioning of the European Economic and Social Committee, on sustainable finance, on the role of little organizations.
Thank you, Marine. Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks for listening to Energetic. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into sustainability and the just energy transition with the most inspiring stakeholders. All links and resources are in the show notes. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you like this podcast, why not recommend it to a friend or a colleague? To continue the conversation, head on over to Twitter or LinkedIn. Thank you for lending your ears. That's all for this episode. Until next time.